to God, and on earth peace, goodwill among men.
Hello. In the previous episode where I talked about the 7 deadly passions, I mentioned that there was hope, and here it comes. And that hope for us is God. Very simply, God being with us is the solution to our fears. When we believe that God will help us, and by believe I mean acting according to what we know to be true and following after Him, we do not experience the fears that dominate us and drive us to do things that we don't want to do. Instead of experiencing fear, we experience faith. It is that total and complete reliance on God, and it is that sense that He is with us and that He is protecting us, and we act according to that rather than fear, which is the flight or fight. Here we have something that brings us a sense of peace, a sense of joy, and ultimately, instead of pride, it brings us a sense of humility. Humility is not rolling around on the ground, groveling. Humility is merely acknowledging reality, who we really are. If we're human beings, we know who we are, we know our limitations, we know our strengths, we know our weaknesses. It all comes through that faith. We don't need to be anything more than who we are, and this is where God's love really begins to manifest itself. It comes out of us because we don't need to come up with falsehoods to deal with reality. And this breaks down into 2 categories. We'll go with the first one. Instead of, in the previous chart of 7 deadly sins, here we had lust. We now have respect. Respect is exceedingly important. Respect means that we look upon people as being made in the image and likeness of God, and we see them for who they really are. We see them in terms of their strengths and their weaknesses, but we don't take advantage of them. We see them as one of God's children, and we give them the same respect that we ourselves would want to be shown. And that again breaks down into 2 categories yet again. Before we had gluttony, we did sloth first. So instead of sloth, we have responsibility. Sorry, it's kind of a long word there. Responsibility means we take care of our own business. We keep our side of the street clean, so to speak. And instead of making other people shoulder our burdens, we carry our own. And then instead of gluttony, which we had before, I'm going to draw a line straight through this. Sorry, Mr. Responsibility. We have moderation. Moderation is the appropriate use of the things that are made by God. Again, it is always looking back to God. God has made food good. He has made, for example, wine and alcohol are good in moderation. It is when we abuse these things that they become something that is damaging to our personhood and to our relationships. Getting back over on this side, where once we had envy, we experienced something new. Envy is hating other people for what they have. The opposite of envy is gratitude. Gratitude says, I like what I have. I'm thankful for what I have. What I have is good. I don't need what other people have. And so begin to stop hating other people for the things that they have. Gratitude, again, also breaks down. Instead of where we had greed before, we now have generosity. Which is, again, we look at all the things that we have come from God. We believe that He is taking care of us. We realize that we don't make the things that we have, although we may work for them, that it ultimately all comes from Him. And so therefore we can be generous. We don't need to hoard. We are also content enough that perhaps we can do well with less. So generosity comes out of that, the gratitude for the many gifts that we have received, seeing that they all come from above. And then instead of anger, we have compassion. Bet you didn't see that one coming. But compassion is where I'm going to step back so you can see a little bit there. Compassion is where we see the sufferings of other people and we feel for them. We realize their distress. And we are more patient and tolerant with people that we have compassion for. For example, there's a difference between if there's a baby that is crying, we will cut that baby a lot more slack than we would a 30-year-old who's crying because they didn't get their vacation to the Bahamas this year, or something like that. Compassion is that sense of realizing that others are in pain and that we need to cut them some slack. Again, all of these good things come about through our faith in God's love. Love is at the core of all of these virtues. God's love manifesting in us. It all comes from Him. He gives us that ability to love ourselves, to love other people, even to love Him. It is that gift that keeps on giving. Whereas in fears, what is at the center is the self. It's all self-oriented. Here we are looking at the love of God manifesting itself in all of these ways, which are good. I mean, any of us would want to be recipients of these things, I'm sure. So this is the seven, what I would call, let's say, the fruits of faith. And in the next tapes that I'll be putting on, I'm going to get more into, well, how do you get to this connection right here? This is where it all really becomes very important in order to experience happiness and peace in our own lives. We need to make this connection between God and ourselves. And that is what the work of the church is all about. And so we'll be discussing that more in upcoming episodes. Thank you.